Hello and welcome to another standard gameplay video on the official MTG Arena channel. Today we're taking a look at a blue-black poison proliferate deck that's looking to apply some early poison damage with its toxic creatures and then hopefully close out the game by proliferating, and then with 10 poison counters on the opponent we win the game, so that's the goal. So at 1 mana we've got the full set of the Skull Dweller, a 1/1 with Death Touch and Toxic 1, so if it deals damage to the opponent we get to apply a poison counter. And then we also have the full set of Voidwing Hybrid, one of the key cards in the deck, a 2/1 flyer with Toxic 1, always nice to have flying on a toxic creature to make it easier to connect, and whenever we proliferate we get to return the hybrid from our graveyard to our hand, so we don't mind if it dies early on, can trade it off for opposing creatures, maybe play defense with it as well if necessary, and then get it back to provide a ton of value in the late game. And then we also have 3 copies of Venser, Corpse Puppet, a 1/3, a Lifelink, and Toxic 1, and says whenever we proliferate, if we don't already control the legendary Hollow Sentinel token, we can make one of those 3/3 artifact tokens, and if we have one already, then an artifact we control gains flying and lifelink until end of turn, so we can also maybe proliferate during the opponent's turn and give our Hollow Sentinel flying out of nowhere, and then the extra lifelink will keep us alive against the more aggressive decks, since we're definitely looking to win with poison damage instead of regular damage. And then we also have 2 copies of Tekethal, Inquiry Dominus as another creature, a 3/5 with flying, doesn't have toxic, but says if we would proliferate twice instead, so that can also speed up the process of poisoning the opponent to death, can also potentially make Tekethal indestructible, but it's going to be pretty difficult to enable in this deck since we're not playing a ton of permanents that have counters on them, but can maybe come up if we have a Vraska in play whose loyalty counters we can remove. And speaking of Vraska, another great curve topper for this deck, can cast it at 5 mana and 2 life, in which case it enters with 4 loyalty, or at 6 mana it will enter with 6 loyalty. The zero ability is essentially a +1 because we get to draw a card at the cost of 1 life and proliferate, which will add an extra loyalty to Vraska in addition to adding an extra poison counter to the opponent, and then a -2 can turn an opposing creature into a treasure, and the -9 ultimate can also be game winning if we can deal 1 more poison afterwards. And then we have a ton of ways to proliferate, of course, to keep adding more poison to the opponent and enable some of our proliferate synergies, including a Whisper of the Dross at 1 mana, an instant giving a creature -1/-1 until end of turn, and we get to proliferate, so perfect for taking out some of the smaller creatures from the Soldiers deck, like Thalia for instance, which can be a nuisance otherwise. Then at 2 mana we have 4 copies of a Drown in Ichor, or key removal spell, giving a creature -4/-4 until end of turn. It is a sorcery, that's a drawback, and -4 not always enough to take out an opposing Shieldred for instance, but still incredibly efficient, and also lets us proliferate, so perfect in the deck. And then 2 copies of Serum Snare as an instant, returning a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If permanent had mana value 3 or less, we also get to proliferate, so the flexibility here is nice, can maybe take out an opposing token for good while proliferating, and can also bounce some permanents that blue-black struggles to interact with, like enchantments and artifacts. And then we've got the full set of Experimental Augury to take a look at the top 3 cards of our library, put 1 in hand, the rest on the bottom, and proliferate, all at instant speed. And then 2 copies of Bring the Ending, or only counterspell in the deck, counterspell unless the opponent pays 2, which is totally fine in the early game, and then late game if we have Corrupted enabled, meaning the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, it turns into a hard counter, which is very nice as well. Now 1 card I'm not playing that I've seen in other builds is Prologue, 2 mana instant, draw card and apply 1 poison to the opponent, which can be a nice way to get that first poison counter going so you can then start proliferating, but in the best of 1 meta with a lot of aggressive decks like Mono-Red Aggro, Blue-White Soldiers, you typically can't really afford to play a lot of cards that don't impact the board. At least with Augury we get a bit more card selection, and being able to proliferate at instant speed can also be very nice alongside Venser and as a way to get back hybrid, so I haven't found room for the Prologue in this build, but I am playing 2 copies of Vraska's Fall, which does apply 1 poison to the opponent, but also makes them sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, so at least gives us a bit of interaction. And then 3 copies of Distorted Curiosity, which can draw 2 cards for 3 mana, but with Corrupted enabled it gets a 2 mana discount, so then it's 1 mana to draw 2 cards, which we can also pretty easily set up. And then at 4 mana we mentioned Tekethal, and then as you may have noticed we don't have any sweepers in this deck despite being pretty controlling, but that's where I'm playing 2 copies of a Gix's Command, a 5 mana sorcery that lets us choose 2 different modes, and we're typically going to choose destroy each creature with power 2 or less if we're up against an aggressive deck, and maybe also return 2 creatures from our graveyard to our hand, so we can get back our Skull Dwellers which are likely to trade off, maybe get back a Venser or a Tekethal as well. And then we can also make the opponent sacrifice a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. Every now and then we might also get to 2/+1 counters and lifelink until end of turn, can also be a way to save our own creature after we choose the mode to destroy creatures with power 2 or less. So this is kind of my answer to the Blue-White Soldiers deck, which can otherwise be pretty tough to deal with. And then topping off our curve, as we mentioned, Vraska, which can also be a nice source of additional poison by proliferating. And then the mana base also has a few goodies with 2 copies of Mirex, which in the late game we can also activate to make a 1/1 Might token with Toxic 1 that cannot block, so can especially be nice in the more controlling matchups where the opponent may have a lot of removal, but eventually they'll run out and the Might tokens will get them. And then we have a lot of blue-black dual lands, including the new Darkslick Shores. Despite being a controlling deck that wants lands to come into play untapped late in the game, it's still very important that we have a lot of blue and black mana, since we may want to cast multiple hybrids that we get back from the graveyard in the same turn, so we can't afford to have too many colorless sources otherwise, and having both double blue and double black can also be important. Some maxing out on the dual lands, and then Abandoned Mire and the Soaring City can also offer additional interaction by channeling, and we do have a couple legendary creatures to discount those as well, and then 5 swamps and 3 islands. So that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. Hand is decent, even though we don't get to play Skull Dweller on 1. Double Venser is a bit redundant, but hybrid and some cheap toxic creatures is what we want in our opener. Let's see what we're up against. Turn 1 Plains and Might. Could play Venser, could play hybrids. I guess Venser is a slightly better blocker here. And if our opponent does have removal, I prefer Venser getting exiled instead of hybrid. Okay, opponent on green-white, toxic. Turn to Singer. So, play hybrids, and then opponent may activate the Defector Might to give protection to attack past our blockers here. And then we'll see next turn if we want to bounce something. Contaminator is also pretty scary. And our opponent keeps up the Might for protection. Okay, at least Skull Dweller could technically trade for Contaminator. Hybrids should probably start attacking. And then I'm just going to play some creatures out. Wait on Serum Snare till we maybe trade off Hybrid. Sentry can exile one of my creatures. Skull Dweller is gone. And a Chorus. So they can use Skrelv on the Singer here to protect it. But no, opponent gives us a chance to block. So that seems good, just trade off for Singer. And it's not going to be too difficult to get our hybrid back. Whisper was good, can answer Skrelv for 1 mana. So let's start there. Could also do this all at instant speed, although we have to watch out for a Tyvar stance for protection. So, just kill Skrelv now. Trigger Venser. Opponent protects Sentry at the cost of 2 life. That's fine. Get Hybrid back and play it, I think. And the current one can attack. Now we've got the token from Venser to play defense. Another Singer can pump the team once again. So a triple block seems fine. I'm okay if Venser dies since we have a backup. And even if they have a Tyvar stand, Contaminator goes up to a 6/6 and still doesn't kill all 3. Whereas a double block could be bad if they have a combo trick here. They also don't get to trample to proliferate. Okay, so we get to keep our token. And Skrelv's Hive, definitely a scary card. Could bounce it with Serum Snare to buy some time. Not sure if that's the correct way to go. Now we can play another Venser. Serum Snare does not give us an extra Sentinel since we already have one. So it's mostly getting back a hybrid from the graveyard. I think hybrid should probably still keep attacking, since that's the only way we currently have to apply more poison. Yeah, could play a Skull Dweller, could just play Venser and pass, could also activate Mirex in the opponent's turn. Not that our token's gonna have a great way to attack. So I think Venser, keep up Snare, probably okay here. And I don't necessarily want to bounce the Sentry either, since then it could maybe exile a hybrid instead of a 1/1 Death Touch that doesn't have a great time attacking into a Crawling Chorus anyway. Opponent is setting up some attacks. They may want to enable the Seed Core as well as giving the team lifelink once we get a third poison. But they reconsider. They also have their own Mirex they could activate. Okay, opponent is jamming. So, token in front of Singer. Venser can block Sentry, and then if they try and pump Sentry, we can bounce it. Is that better than bouncing Chorus? Probably, although they're more likely to try and save Singer, I think. And then I think we're okay with damage. No need to bounce Chorus to prevent a third poison. So they now have lifelink, but we're not planning to win with damage anyway. So we'll take our draw step. Attack with Hybrid. And then now Hybrid and Venser can attack. Opponents can't block with their mites, even though they can pump with a Seed Core. And then either activate Mirex or play Skull Dweller, keep up Serum Snare. So our opponent's probably planning to start attacking with the mites, since now they can pump with the Seed Core to get past our 3/3, although we can easily replace it. And then I think we do play Skull Dweller here. And pass. Mirex can make more tokens. But our opponent is up to 6 poison. Serum Snare can make it 7. And then it doesn't take long for Hybrid to cross the finish line. Opponent swinging with her tokens. Okay, so we'll just block a 1/1 here, make them use the Seed Core, and then maybe end of turn Serum Snare bouncing Sentry can enable a lethal attack. That's fine. We'll be able to replace the token soon. So they currently only have 1 blocker, so unless they have a Tyvar stand for protection, this could be good for us. Now I guess Tyvar stand would also prevent the Proliferate from Serum Snare, so hopefully that's not the case. Alternatively, could have tried to maybe bounce the Hive to have the guaranteed Proliferate. Okay, Soul Partition on Venser to prevent the token from being generated, but we still get to bring back Hybrids, poison up to 7, and have 3 lethal attackers. So, sounds good to me. And there we go. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems decent. Skull Dweller into Hybrids. Apply some early poison, and then drown to clear a path and keep proliferating. Opponent on Junt Colors. So we're well set up against any creature strategy. On the play, good curve out start. But our opponent keeps up some mana here, so likely gonna see removal. They're taking out Hybrids, which we can potentially return, unless their opponent's got a Graveyard Trespasser to exile it next turn, which would make a lot of sense, but I'm not gonna drown my own Skull Dweller either. Alright, it's just gonna be a Fable. Not too sad to see that. Kill the Shaman. Don't think we need to speed up the opponent's Saga. So just an extra poison, get back Hybrids. Would have been perfect had we drawn a land to replay it, but at least now our late game has more potential with Tequethal and Vraska. Can hope to get one more poison out of our Skull Dwellers, up to 6. And then Hybrid can connect maybe once or twice. Another Fable. So no lands is too bad here. If I attack, our opponent most likely trades. Question is whether I need to keep Drown for the transformed Reflection, especially if Harvester shows up. That's going to be a pretty difficult combo to overpower. Of course we could Drown, and then opponent goes up to 8 poison total. And then we can hope to get there through Proliferate. But the creatures are going to have a hard time. Yeah, maybe that's still the best way to go. Up to 8 poison, and then we just need to proliferate twice. Although Vraska feels incredibly far away. Yeah, with the 4th land, this game might have been over by now. But we're both stuck on 3 for the time being. Opponent does have Harvester, so they likely have another one in hand, and Atraxa in the graveyard as well. So opponent's a Reanimator deck. Don't really care about the 7-powered Lifelinker, but we do care about Atraxa finding more removal. Liliana makes us sack a Skull Dweller. Okay, and Serum Snare could just win us the game here. If our opponent doesn't have spot removal. Bounce Reflection, Proliferates up to 9, Skull Dweller up to 10, and there we go. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and our hand's missing blue besides Mirex, which can make blue for 1 turn. So it's going to be challenging to play Tekethal, but we get to start with a Skull Dweller, double Drown, so I think it has enough potential that I should keep. And then hopefully we're up against a creature deck where Drown's going to be effective, and our Skull Dweller can at least get a hit in. Okay, blue-green. Whisper could also come in handy. Especially good with Tekethal at 5 mana. We can play Tekethal and a 1 mana Whisper to proliferate twice. Stormchaser Drake, good target for Whisper. So our opponent probably on a blue-green Rot Priest poison deck. Okay, and we'll be able to play Tekethal on curve, which they shouldn't really have any great answers to. There's a Rot Priest. Now they will have ways to protect it, so don't expect Drown to necessarily resolve. And if they fizzle Drown by protecting Rot Priest, giving it hexproof, then we also don't get to proliferate. So that's the main drawback there. So we'll attack, don't expect them to trade. Play Tekethal. Okay, opponent had to bring the ending, was not playing around the 2 mana counter. So now we're just applying some poison back and forth. Ivy, we're gonna want to take out if possible. And a Combat Research will give Ivy Ward 1 as well, in addition to applying more poison. Okay, opponent is down to 1 card in hand, however. So Drown should be effective, and our opponent taps out for Curiosity. Alright, so now we can kill both creatures, starting with the Rot Priest so we don't take additional poison. And then we still have a Mirex that can make additional creatures. So I'm not hating our position. Opponent at 7 poison. Another Ivy. So, don't quite have the mana to Drown and activate Mirex. I think we start with Drown. And yeah, our opponent concedes, attack them up to 9 poison, and then next turn we should be able to close out the game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, hand seems fine. Good mix of interaction and ways to apply some poison. We'll see if we want to run out Venser on 2 or if we played safe. Against a red deck, at least next turn our opponent's incentivized to play a creature, so if they want a Lightning Strike Venser, they won't get the most out of the second chapter. But best case scenario, Venser survives, and next turn we can drown a creature to start proliferating. Okay, adversary, perfect. Opponent gets their 3/3, can attack past Venser, which gives us the opportunity to attack, deal a poison, and then drown adversary, making a 3/3 in the process. Probably wanted to play River and tap that to keep up a black for Whisper, although I'm not sure if we'll necessarily use it here. Okay, opponent's gonna kill Venser if that happens. And Epicure to deal 1 damage. Well, at least we still have our 3/3 token to play defense. Could Whisper to kill Epicure right now. Might be better off waiting in case we can catch them off guard. And then probably no need to drown the etching. Yeah, let's just pass. See what happens. Okay, Thundering Raiju, that's the type of card we want to actually take out. So they're likely to put counter on etching, in which case we could just trade and then next turn drown Raiju. Could also Whisper Raiju, shrink it down, block it with our 3/3, and then bounce etching. Yeah, that's actually not bad. So we don't take any unnecessary damage. And we get to keep our large blocker. And best case scenario, draw land for Vraska next turn. Okay. We'll have to pay 3 life total here. But we can proliferate and have a 5 loyalty planeswalker left over, protected by a 3/3 token. Another Raichu we can drown. So can just let Vraska take 4 instead of jumping with the 3/3. I think that's reasonable. And then start by drawing. Okay, floating out a little bit. But our opponent's up to 7 poison. Now adversary can get back Lightning Strike to kill our token and kill Vraska. Okay, so now all of a sudden we're somewhat behind. Still have a lot of good top decks left, Drown being one of them. Kill adversary up to 8 poison. Would love our draw 2 effect here to find more action. Opponent's also down to 1 card in hand. Uses the blood token to discard Epicure. And take 1 down to 9. Okay, Hybrid was not bad. Will eventually be exiled by etching once it transforms, but for now we're probably gonna try and attack with it, given the chance. Since we don't have a way to proliferate in hand. And then we'll likely see our opponent take it out with removal. Okay, so at least it's not exiled now. But next turn we will take 3, so we're definitely within burn range. And yeah, definitely drawn a few too many lands along the way, although our opponent also up to 7. Ooh, and a Devastator. Yeah, that's gonna end the game right now. So incredibly close, had a very promising start, just needed to draw 1 or 2 more action spells along the way. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, hand seems decent. Double hybrids, which we can get back once we proliferate. And if we're up against an aggressive deck, we're happy to play defense, trade off hybrid for opposing creatures and get them back. But turn 1 might. Okay, still happy to trade off here. if our opponent offers. So maybe a 3-color toxic deck. Opponent hangs back. And yeah, we'll hit for 2, play another hybrid. Opponent applies a poison with a prologue. So now if they proliferate, they can add more poison as well. Opponents get their own hybrid. Okay. And of course Skrelv can protect it, so trying to kill it with a drown is not going to work out. So instead we can attack with both our hybrids, see if our opponent trades, and then drown Skrelv second main. And then we'll still be able to replay our hybrid. One mana Curiosity is online, can help hit our land drops. And this is a fine exchange. Just keep proliferating back and forth. Replace their hybrids. Now what we don't have is a way to proliferate that's not a removal spell, so that could be useful in case we want to trade off here. Okay, so we haven't found non-removal proliferate sources. So do I still want to attack or just play double Skull Dweller and pass? And then next turn maybe set up an attack after drowning? That seems better. Annex Sentry can exile our hybrids, but drown can get it back. And another prologue, so our opponent is tapped out at least. They're attacking with their hybrid, so they're ahead in the poison race, but not for long. So drown Sentry, attack for 2, and then just replay hybrid. Being patient on Tekkathal to make sure we can play it and proliferate in the same turn, ideally. Another prologue, up to 5 poison. And another might. Opponent hangs back. And yeah, concedes. Pretty sure we could finish off our opponent here between Vraska's Fall and Drown. That's 2 more poison. Attack for 4 poison. And that does it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems decent. Skull Dweller into hybrid. And then just need to apply a bit of poison to get a 1 mana Curiosity. Opponent off to a slower start. So red-black. Do we see a turn 2 Harvester perhaps? We do. I imagine they'll trade for Skull Dweller if I attack. Which I think we're okay with. And then I can Augury to proliferate, up to 3 poison and cast a 1 mana Curiosity. And then hope to find more ways to proliferate. Probably grab a Vraska's Fall. Okay, not bad. So we'll see if we want to tap out for Tekkathal next turn, or hang on to it for a while. Yeah, I guess playing Tekkathal is fine here. And then best case scenario, our opponent taps out for Shieldred, even though opponent can crew the Bankbuster to sacrifice the Bankbuster instead of Shieldred. It doesn't really disrupt our game plan in any way. So I can cast a Vraska's Fall now, and then Drown can just deal 2 poison but doesn't kill Shieldred. So possible we're better off waiting on the Vraska's Fall. Okay, now double Drown is 4 poison with Tekethal out, kills Shieldred. That's going to be the move. They'll have to crew Bankbuster now too if they want to be able to crew it. So now I could use Vraska's Fall to kill Shieldred, but then we may not have a target for Drown and Ichor in the near future. Whereas now we're guaranteed to deal 2 more poison, which is all we need. So your opponent's up to 8, attack up to 9, and then Vraska's Fall is a 10th poison. So very quick one here against the red-black mid-range, despite a functional draw. Alright, so we get to see our blue-black poison toxic deck in action. And yeah, if you can start out on the play, especially with the early Skull Dweller into Hybrid, you can quickly get a ton of poison going, and then Hybrid also gives you a bit of late game by being able to play defense with it, trade it off, get it back from the graveyard, so you can definitely win longer grindy games, where Vraska can also show up to proliferate and deal the last points of poison damage. So quite happy with where this build ended up. Still definitely quite a few flex slots in the deck. I've seen a lot of different ways to approach this blue-black proliferate deck, but I've been pretty happy with the build of it so far. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.